One of the world's leading media agencies, the chairman and CEO of Publicis Groupe, Mr. Maurice Levy.
Thank you, Monica. Good morning. Bonjour. I have been told that we say in Russian, Dobroy utro. I'm very happy to be here today, and I would like to thank very warmly the Federation of Russia, as well as the city of Moscú and the IAA for the invitation. It's a great honor and a great pleasure to be with you and to share a few views on the changes and the consequences. Russia has been always key to our strategy, not only because it's a country which is growing fast, and we believe that despite the problem of last year and the crisis, this is a country which has the resources to become, again, a growth engine for the world. The second aspect, obviously, is that the Russians love brands. And our business is all about brands. So what I will be trying to do is to insist on how the brands are evolving in the future. But when it comes to Russia, I have no problem. I know that Russians love the brands, and our clients, the advertisers, have great interest in the Russian market. The third aspect for which Russia is important to us is because of talent. This is a country where we have a population which is highly educated, very well trained, and a lot of Russians are creative by nature. So I believe that nurturing Russian talent is something which will help us to bring more talent on a worldwide scene. If you look at the first months for Russia, we have been quite happy with the numbers. The market is coming back. Our numbers are very good. And including the month of April is giving us some very encouraging view for the full year. So we expect Russia to be back, maybe not fully in 2010, but probably that in 2011 we will reach again the level of investment of 2008. Publicis last year has posted the best performance of the industry. And if we look at the numbers to this year, the first quarter has been very good, widening the gap with our competitors. And the trade numbers are very encouraging. So I do believe that the market is coming back. I do believe that we have some reason to hope for a recovery, which will be probably progressive and which will take its full speed in 2011. The theme of the 42nd IAA World Congress is change and consequences. So I will focus my speech on what I believe matters most for a group like Publicis, which are the consumers. As P&G put it, consumer is boss. So we have to understand the consumer, we have to understand what motivates the consumers, what makes the consumer moving and making a decision to choose a brand rather than another, and obviously clients. And what I will do now is to take you to your youth. So you will have to imagine, and I think it will not take too much to imagine that you are 20 today. And since you were 10, you have seen September 11, the war against terror, the war in Iraq, the bombings in London, Madrid, and even Moscú, the fall of Lehman Brothers, the bankruptcy of General Motors, and in matter, the biggest crook in history, and since mid-2007, the worst economic crisis in modern times, and you have seen a lot more. Some of the richest countries in the world are staggering under the weight of debt and future demographic obligation that you will spend your life paying for. You take for granted, it is obvious that the resources of the planet are finite, that there is a greater good, more important than the individual good, that consumers have the right to question companies, brands, corporations, and that only disaster can result if markets are not regulated. Equally, it would be obvious to you that governments don't change the world, that you have to do it yourself, that you can do it yourself in your own small way, that the power of your wallet, your keyboard, and your Facebook friends are the things that can create a better future. And if you don't do it, nobody else will. If you are 20 today, you are not as greedy as the older generation. I mean mine. You want a career, for sure, but if you can spend 1 or 2 years with NGOs, you'll do so. You believe in the power of communication, and you get informed, educated, entertained, connected through the web and a host of electronic devices. Whether you are in San Francisco, Moscow, or Shanghai, you are part of a digital economy that needs you worldwide to friends, colleagues, and even just people who share the same interest as you. More than ever before, you are conscious of being one digitally native tribe which inhabits one indivisible world and is responsible for the future of that world. Ladies and gentlemen, my friends, these are our consumers of tomorrow. They are polite, sincere, serious, educated, empowered. But don't doubt that they are revolutionaries. The generation that is growing up today is the most revolutionary generation since World War II. They don't carry guns. They are more pragmatic than that. The issues that they want to address are too big to fool around with. Human survival, the widening of the rich-poor gap, the very nature of consumption, the way companies behave. These are not something you change by blowing up airports. You can do much better with a click of the finger. And make no mistake about it, they are not just a niche group. If you believe that this generation is just a niche group, you are making a big mistake. Today, we are learning our ethics from our children, not the other way around. They are the opinion leaders, and the value they are bringing and changing the mainstream. It is the young and the idealistic who have swung America to the left. They see Obama as having ethical values of being inclusive, optimistic, tolerant. And they have had the digital organizing power to bring him to office. It is the young and idealistic who made Facebook keep their data secret and limit its advertising. It is the young and idealistic who pushed Google not to censor Chinese search results. It is the young and I dare say we have pushed a sustainability agenda that has made oil companies, car companies, train companies, even beauty product companies make radical changes to not only their advertising, but what they think is important and their business model. Huge corporations had to listen to them. So we should not be in any doubt that the younger generation has an agenda for change, knows the power it has, and is changing mainstream, i.e. the older opinion. We should not be in doubt that the million radicals have the power to dictate the agenda for the biggest brands to large corporations, just as they dictate the sustainability agenda to governments. By now, it should be obvious why only 40% of consumers trust big business to do the right thing. This is quite frightening. That's not only a consequence of the crisis, it is also something which is, since many years, burning beneath ourselves. It represents a fundamental gap between the values of people and the values of big businesses. Clearly, the rise of CSR has not been enough. The people we serve and the consumer we depend on for growth do not believe in the big business community as we know it. They do not understand our language or accept our motives. Why is shareholder value the only thing that matters, or the thing that matters most? Don't the employees matter? Don't the consumer matter? It seems like a rather thin cloak to disguise what is in reality a scheme to enrich the people who get big bonuses at the cost of the people who work in their factories and the people who buy their products. We should not think that this is only left-wing journalist opinion. These are the opinion of our future generation. Clearly, the recent financial crisis has only made this more acute and generated more anger from the youngsters. If you believe that they are only interested in gaming and watching Avatar in 3D, you will soon see for yourself how wrong you can be. Since these millennials radicals are new to the world, setting their own agenda, it should be no surprise that they often favor new brands that represent their views. And by the way, since the 60s, we have known that the young audience never likes the world as their parents see it with their too familiar brand. All leading brands are now subject to question. For the last 60 years, it's been pretty much accepted that if you were a market leader, you will stay a market leader. Now, it is almost the reverse. If you are a market leader, your reputation will be subject to even greater scrutiny than your smaller competitors, because your brand impact is that much greater, and expectations also. If you are a big company with a high-profile stock performance, regularly portrayed in the press, with executives receiving fat bonuses, and rich expenditures, and huge profit, people will ask whether the product they buy from you are good value or not, particularly if these products are produced in low cost countries with low wages. Let's face it, big companies have hardly ever been popular, but now the challenge is even greater for them, as they are easy to target, slow to react. When there is a problem, the first question is, what is the legal department opinion? And it will take a week before getting the answer, and often too late, and they don't understand the net and don't know how to communicate with the audience. This is a great time to be a challenger or an outsider. But paradoxically, this need not be the end of the big corporations. Some of the biggest companies have proved that they can be a market leader and an ethical leader, or even perhaps a market leader through being an ethical leader. The fastest growing brand by value, Google, has its mantra, do good. Toyota, until the recent stumble, by far the fastest growing car company, grew its acceptance by proactively addressing the problems created by the sheer number of cars on the planet. We need to develop and pass on automobile technology to future generations that places less burden on the environment. So they pioneered hybrid cars like the Prius, which not only boosted Toyota sales, but established them as a leadership brand in the environmental debate. After the turmoil generated by the discovery of the child workers who produced their shoes, Nike became the most sensitive company on ethics and sustainable development. They changed even their advertising to something which is showing much more grass and more concern for environment. Big corporations have a greater ability to solve the problem of the world. Their resources and capabilities are bigger. They can harness technology better. When they take leadership position on the environment, on pricing, on staff treatment, on sourcing things, it affects more people for the better. It does real good with much more impact. Procter & Gamble were among the first major companies to realize that having a true company purpose at the heart of their strategy was motivating for all their stakeholders. I will not be able to speak as well as Mark did it yesterday, but their motto, which is touching lives, improving life, provides a very clear and admirable test for everything they do, and we have seen that yesterday. Since July 2002, P&G has decreased its use of energy and water by approximately 50% at product it produces, and reduced waste and CO2 emission by half also. As the world's largest food company, Nestlé has a huge responsibility to feed people well, and they have put nutrition, health and wellness at the core of what they do, but also to do it in a way that is economically and environmentally sustainable as they know it. They spend about 20 billion Swiss francs a year on raw material. They work directly with 540,000 farmers, and 3.4 million people in developing countries earn their livelihoods from Nestlé supply chain. And major companies with their large influence and resources can clearly go far to set the agendas. For 10 years, L'Oréal Women in Science has celebrated the importance of Women in Science and helped to encourage women to participate in science by awarding international prizes, worldwide fellowship, and animating the global community around science. And in the last few months, one of the laureate has been a Nobel Prize. It is even possible, not easy, but possible to significantly reinvent some of the biggest corporations. In a few short years, McDonald's has reinvented itself to be, if not an organic alternative, at least a provider of acceptably healthy food at a good price for the mass consumer. I am pleased to say, based in no small measure on dietary guidelines devised by McDonald's France. Sorry to put this French touch. This has done nothing but good to their reputation, that's their sales, and their share price. What you see on the billboard is something which is interesting, the fresh salad. We planted seeds on the billboard, and a few days after, people have been able to see the salad growing. Nor should it be thought that Western companies have the monopoly on enlightenment. Far from it. In many cases, the new generation of brick multinationals have more advanced views on ethics than we have in the West. In India, for example, harsh social conditions and inequality have been a part of the country's past and are still an unavoidable fact of daily life today. So it is not surprising that socially valuable entrepreneurship is a part of the culture and a competitive advantage for many of India's companies. Tata Industries has had a welfare department since 1917, inspired by a philosophy of give back what you get. They introduced paid leave in 1920 and maternity pay in 1928. And more recently, Wipro or Infosys are investing heavily in employee education and welfare and in helping people to have a better life. Closer to the present, Banco Real in Brazil, in an outstanding example of a company that has achieved success, not by having a CSR program, but by being themselves a socially responsible company. They committed themselves to be a Banco de Valor, a bank of value genuinely focused on using the transformational power of finance to enhance Brazil's economic, social, and environmental situation. In 2007, as part of the collapse of ABN AMRO, they were taken over by Banco Santander, the Spanish bank. Their brand was so strong that, unlike in almost all their takeovers, Santander had to choose the Banco Real name for the merged company and floated it on the stock market for $8 billion. Who says that doing the right thing doesn't pay? There are many more examples of such great initiatives, and you can see the world changing. But if companies are to reinvent, they need to realize they are creating a new compact with the world consumers. For the last 50 years, the compact has been consumers want to consume more, cheaper, and companies have to provide more goods more cheaply for mass consumption. The more companies fulfill this need, the more they grow, and the more they contributed to the well-being of people. This will not be the deal in the post-materialist age, and we should make no mistake. It cannot be. American consumers, according to the World Watch Institute, consume their body weight of natural resources every day. There is simply not the quantity of resources on the planet for the huge populations of India, China, Russia, Brazil, and others to consume at this intensity, even if this is the dream that we, the companies, and we, the advertising agencies, have encouraged them to share. It will not be enough for our product to be made in a more sustainable fashion. Ultimately, we need to question the very idea that consuming more is the goal of a prosperous society. Couldn't consuming less or consuming better be a goal in itself? There was a propensity to consume more, whereas we should educate people to consume better and rightly. Can we really afford concepts like built-in obsolescence and disposable fashion? Surely it is better to replace them with products that have greater value because they last longer, with products that you can have rather than own, that you can upgrade rather than throw out. Vintage products and clothes that are given a second life with new owners. The web offers not only the possibility to compare prices and buy more cheaply, but to exchange one product for another, or even to sell used products. There is a lot to change in the way we consume, the way we use the media, we share learning, we educate. How do we move from quantity to quality, from satisfaction of status to satisfaction of needs? And when I say needs, I mean real needs. In fact, to well-being. In this new world, this connected world, we will change for the good. It will not be more for less, but it will be less for good. Look at the explosion in the exchange of homes during vacation or selling services person to person. People are no longer inclined to buy what we offer unless they see the value of what we offer. It is going to require a formidable effort of imagination to rethink many values that we take for granted. Marketers, we need to question some of their deepest beliefs about consumption and growth. But they should also know that consumers will question the company behind the product, the brand, the set of values, the ethical behavior, its contribution to doing good to the planet and to other people. And make, again, no mistake, we are under the watch of the new generation. We, the advertising agencies, will have to question the dreams we are selling to people. We need to be conscious that the change from consumption to post-materialism is going to be far more fundamental than what we optimistically call sustainable development. And it's not going to happen overnight. I am a great believer in growth and in solid profit. So I'm not thinking that we should stop growing. I'm fighting to grow my company, and I'm fighting to get the best profitable situation simply because this is what is helping us to invest in talent, to invest in the future. But I think that if both are indispensable to create great companies, which do good to the planet, help people to live better, build wealth for their stakeholders, offer great career opportunities to our employees and to jobs, it has to be in an ethical way. I also believe that there is growth and growth, just as there are profits and profits. Cynical growth or cynical profit belong to the past. We have suffered of that, and we ourselves, put an end to this. Ethical growth, ethical profit are good. They are good for the company, they are good for the consumer, they are good for the population, they are good to grow a good company. And they are there to last, and we know how it is difficult to last. Unfortunately, we have some guides on that way. In many ways, the frightening, it is a good thing that the consumer, and especially the younger consumer, is further ahead of us in adjusting to new values. They are already replacing a culture of pure consumption with a culture of ethical consumption. They will force us to change. We don't have to change for the sake of our children. We have to change because of our children. Thank you very much. Merci, spasiba, and have a good day.